Hello, my name is Sam Feltham, and welcome to this very, very special edition and almost DIY edition, as you can see here, of Smash the Facts with expert interviews. With me today, as you can see here on my iPad. Okay, so we're having to do this via Skype due to a couple of technical difficulties, but with me today is the founder of Matthew's Friends charity, Emma Williams, MBE. How are we doing, Emma?
Hi, nice to finally get to talk to you, Sam.
Yeah, absolutely. Google Hangouts was having particular problems today, but we've managed to hook it up so that you're on the iPad, which is kind of going through Google Hangouts and then coming through to all of the listeners and viewers today. As I kind of mentioned there, you're the founder of Matthew's Friends. So
Yeah.
What exactly is Matthew's Friends, and kind of what's your mission with it?
Wow, that's a big question. Matthew's Friends is a dedicated ketogenic diet charity. It's the only one in the UK. These are not ketogenic diets which are used for weight loss. These are medical ketogenic diets that we use for specifically medical conditions, i.e. epilepsy, brain tumour, metabolic disorders, that kind of thing. So we work a lot with medical experts up and down the country and abroad. So we work with the big ketogenic experts. So that's basically where Matthew's Friends is now. We were set up, and we are a dedicated ketogenic diet charity and clinic. We have our clinic branch as well. It all set up through Matthew, basically, my son. He had epilepsy. He started having seizures when he was 9 months old. It was devastating, obviously, when he first starts. And first off, they gave me medication and said, you know, he'll grow out of it or take medication, the seizures will stop. Well, sadly, they didn't. They didn't stop at all. And if anything, they got a hell of a lot worse. And the seizures continued down this road. Well, Matthew was getting to about 2. And he was having many different types of seizures, and it had started to affect his cognition. We couldn't go out. You know, it was a really, really dark time, the whole thing. And when you start going through the medications and you're realizing that the first one doesn't work and the second one doesn't work and the third one doesn't work, and then they're starting to put medications together. And then there's behavioural difficulties coming in, and things are getting worse, not better. You start doing your own research, I suppose. Up until that point, you're kind of doing what you're told, because that's the only thing you do know, and you're just trying to get through every day. But you start doing your own research. I started doing a lot of reading and things like that to see if there was anything else I could do to help Matthew. And that's when I came across this specialist diet, this ketogenic diet. And I found out about it through Jim Abrahams of the Charlie Foundation, because he'd made a film, First Do No Harm. And it's actually the oldest treatment there is for epilepsy, even before the meds came in. This diet sort of dates back. And it was used initially, or it was called initially, the starvation diet.
Right.
Because it was noticed that when people with seizures were ill and they weren't eating, their seizures would stop. So the way they used to treat them is they used to starve these people for long periods of time, or just give them water for as long as possible. And then when they started eating again, the seizures would come back. Now, obviously, this is not a good thing to do. So it's sort of in the early 1900s, the doctors and a team at the Mayo Clinic in America was starting to look at what's going on with this, what's happening when the body is not eating. So this is how they discovered that, you know, what's actually happening is the brain's not getting the glucose for the energy, so it starts burning body fat, and in the process of burning this body fat, it's producing these things called ketones. So what they did, they developed a diet which is forcing the body to burn ketones all the time. So we forcibly take away the carbohydrates, as you guys know, and we give fat instead. So we forcibly changed the metabolism of the body. So I was reading about all of this, and I went to Matthew's neurologist and said, read about this diet, would like to give it a go, you know, look, it can have some dramatic results. And I was told that it didn't work, it was disgusting. Don't I think Matthew's suffering enough? These diets really don't work. There's been some anecdotal evidence about it, but really we shouldn't do it, and I'm going to make Matthew's life a whole lot worse. He was my first baby, and I'm in the middle of, I'm in a big hospital in front of experts. So I did as I was told. And it, you know, it carries on, and life goes on, and you think you're doing the right thing with the information that you're given, and the med trials are still going backwards and forwards. By this time, Matthew has suffered severe brain damage. He's having hundreds of seizures a week, bouts of status epilepticus, where these are seizures that don't stop. So he'll just go have another one and another one and another one, or have a continuous one. I think the longest tonic-clonic Matthew's ever had is about an hour and 40 minutes. And compared to some other children, that's not bad. It's still horrific when you're going through it, but there are some children that have been having seizures for days continuously.
Wow.
Matthew would have bouts of non-convulsive status where he would be out for days and literally be like a zombie. And more meds kept going in. His behaviour was just off the chart. Every room had to be padded in the house. His younger sister couldn't go near him. My marriage broke down, all that kind of thing. There's a lot of stress put on the family with things. So, you know, the years go on, and periodically I kept going back and going, what about this diet? What about this diet? And again, same reply, meds are still, well, we will hit on the right med combination. There's plenty of medications to try. You really don't want to go down this road. Anyway, Matthew was coming up. He was about 6, 7. And I was, yeah, it must have been about 7. And I was told that the chances are, with the way Matthew was going, he'd probably be dead by the time he was 12. And if he wasn't, then he would need to be in a residential home because we wouldn't be able to cope with him anymore. I mean, his behaviour was off the chart by this time. He had a mental age of about 12 months old. The brain damage, he had scarring all over his brain by this time. And the scarring was now causing the seizures. So the seizures had caused scarring, and now the scarring is causing the seizures. So we're going around in a vicious circle. So when you're faced with that kind of decision, you're like, well, this is crazy. Your solutions are just making things worse, not better. So I went back to the doctor, and I said, well, I don't care how bad you say this diet is. I have got to at least try it because there is nothing else here. Your meds aren't making this. They were looking at revisiting meds that he'd already been on. And I'm like, well, this is crazy. Yeah. You know, we've already tried this and it's not worked. So on this occasion, the doctor turned around and she said, well, actually, my colleague is doing a trial on the ketogenic diet. And I'm like, wow, it's in the same hospital, you're kidding me. So she's like, yeah, so I got an appointment. It's like the doctor in the next room. And Matthew was accepted onto the trial. I went and met with the team, and I started it at the beginning of the summer holidays because I wanted to watch Matthew, and I thought, well, if this is really bad and all the rest of it, then I need to watch him 24/7 and give it a go. You kind of commit yourself to 3 months. It's part of a clinical trial, which I was more than happy about because being part of a clinical trial means you get really closely monitored. So I'm like, yep, that's fine, I'll do this. And I've got to say, when I first saw the diet sheets, it was really daunting. I was like, wow, my life's over on this one. But we've got to try it. So I cleared the decks and everything at home. And I tried the diet, and we started on day 1. And I literally, the first couple of days were hell. It was absolute hell. I felt like I spent 8 hours in the kitchen producing these tiny meals, which were the biggest shock to me ever. Because obviously the whole dynamics of the meal had changed. Matthew was a bit miserable the first few days. It wasn't going too well. He was still having seizures, he was crying, he was whinging, he was moaning. And I was 8 hours or so, I felt like it, in the kitchen producing these tiny meals. Anyway, he went deep into ketosis. His metabolism switched, and he had quite a dramatic, you know, all of a sudden his ketones shot up, and he went so deep into ketosis that I could hardly wake him up because he was literally out of it. He stank of pear drops and all that kind of thing. So I got him blue lighted into hospital because I was really frightened. This was halfway through, I think, my first week. And they gave him some oxygen. I told him I was on the ketogenic diet. I had all my filer stuff with me. And he had a drink. They brought his ketones down a little bit because he was deep into ketosis. And he perked up. He woke up and he was like, no, he's fine now. He just, he's too high ketones. Gave him some tubes, came down. Anyway, I brought him home thinking, what have I done? Anyway, the next day I woke up and Matthew was like a different boy. And all of a sudden we didn't have any seizures. And that was the crux of it, was where Matthew's metabolism was switching. Anyway, the long and short of it, by the end of 2 weeks, Matthew's seizures had dropped by 90%.
Wow. And
this is a boy that was having hundreds of seizures a week. And by 8 months into the diet, he was off all this medication. And I had a completely different boy. He was laid back, chilled, happy, laughing. All the side effects that he told me about the diet weren't correct. He wasn't throwing up all the time. He enjoyed his food. He wasn't hungry. He wasn't gaining weight. His lipid levels weren't through the roof. He was being monitored. He was happy. The school got on board with me. They couldn't believe the difference. So by 3 months into the diet, I was a complete convert. Mm-hmm. And I was either at the stage where I was going to kill a neurologist or set up a charity, because I knew if I was being told this kind of stuff, other people were going to be told it as well. And the craziest thing is, Sam, that when I was telling my family I was putting my boy on this diet, the one person I thought that wouldn't understand it was my dad, because he's never into stuff like that, bless him. Mm. But he's an ex-professional wrestler and bodybuilder. So when I turned around and said, I'm going to put Matthew on the ketogenic diet, out of everybody in the family, that was one person who went, oh, yeah, I know all about that diet. Bodybuilders have been using it for years. And I'm like, wow. So that leads you on to doing more research. And obviously that was the same way that our Mike Dancer got involved with it as well. Mm-hmm. So it was that way. So that's how the start of the charity began. I brought in 2 of my closest friends, one being Matthew's godmother, Julie, and then another mum that was around the corner, Val, who I knew very well, and her boy had got put on the same trial just after Matthew. So I was talking to her about it, coaching her with it, and again, her son, Greg, had a phenomenal drop in seizures, far better quality of life, and so she witnessed it as well, and she still works with us to this day. So we set up the charity in order to inform other people, I suppose, to share our experiences, mm-hmm. And to share the useful tips and hints that I done. Because after a few weeks into the diet, the first couple of weeks were really daunting, but you get into the swing of it, and all of a sudden you're going, hang on a minute, I can make this better somehow. And you start working at it, and you start, I can do this and I can do that, and then working with this dietitian. So Matthew was having really nice food. It wasn't disgusting. He wasn't throwing up. We didn't have all the side effects that I've been told were so dreadful over the years. And it was just life changing. I mean, I can't put it into words. Matthew is now, he's going to be 20 on the 8th of September. Wow. He's still living at home, and he's not going anywhere either. He's quite happy. He was on the diet for a total of 6 years because I was too scared to take him off. Mm-hmm. Normally we say stay on the diet for 2 years, then we'll trial a wean off, but I wouldn't even entertain that fact. Mm-hmm. So he stayed on it for 6 years and loved it. He was on the classical diet for 3 years, and then I swapped him over to an MCT version of the diet, and did very well, and then sort of weaned him off. He's been off the diet now for 6 years, and seizures haven't come back. He's always had a few. He's never been completely seizure-free. Mm-hmm. But the seizures he has now, they last about 40 seconds, something like that. They're normally at night, so he recovers really, really quickly, goes to sleep, quite happy. Obviously, with all the damage he's had before the diet, he's profoundly disabled, and we've since discovered he has Dravet syndrome, which is a genetic disorder and a catastrophic version of a catastrophic type of epilepsy. So the chances were he was never going to be seizure-free anyway with that kind of condition. Mm-hmm. But he's certainly got the best quality of life. There's not a day that doesn't go past where I don't thank God for that diet, because it changed everything in our world. And as far as Matthew's Friends is concerned, our whole ethos is about the education, support of families, the education of not only families but professionals that maybe are thinking the same thing that the doctor thought back in the day when I approached her about it. So it's all about that, and providing service as well, and a support network, which is what we've done. I mean, we're celebrating 10 years this year. We've got Matthew's Friends in New Zealand. We've got a small branch, Matthew's Friends in Canada. We did have a small branch in South Africa, but luckily that's been taken over by another parental group now, the Keeley Foundation, which is great because you're now beginning to see these foundations popping up. So we either have got our own branch, or we're working with other family organisations in various countries. And my whole life got taken over with the ketogenic diet, and so it's been my full-time job now for about 12 years in total. So it's all I do. That's awesome. And that's it, in a nutshell.
yeah, just in a nutshell. Maybe a handful of nuts. But it's an incredible story, Emma, and so much so that you were awarded, was it back in 2012 with an MBE, or was it before that?
No, it was what year are we in? 2014? Yeah, 2013. It was last year.
Sorry, it was last year. There you go. Yeah, as well as being an Olympic torchbearer for London 2012 as well. Has that all come from Matthew's Friends?
Yes, it has. There's been some lovely people along the way that have seen fit to nominate me and for various things, which I'm very humbled for, because when it does happen, you go, well, it's not just me, I'm not just Matthew's Friends. I mean, to be quite honest, I could step away from Matthew's Friends tomorrow and it could carry on, because there is a phenomenal team now, especially with our clinic team as well. Not that I'm going to step away, not for a long time yet. There's too much work to do, and when you've been touched by something like this, you're very passionate about it. But like I say, you're only as good as the team around you. So it's been lovely getting the awards, and it was a thrill to meet the Queen. But it is due to the hard work and support I have from a phenomenal team around me. So that can't be underestimated at all.
No, absolutely. And you're kind of starting to explore other therapeutic measures of a ketogenic diet as well. So obviously it started off with epilepsy and its therapeutic measures for that during that kind of transition period. But where else is the ketogenic diet appearing to be useful?
Well, it's the treatment of choice for those that have got GLUT1 deficiency. This is a metabolic disorder where the brain can't actually use glucose for energy. There is a problem with the glucose transporter pathway. So therefore, we have to look for an alternative pathway of energy. Well, the obvious choice is ketogenic diet. So Matthew's Friends are the UK branch for the GLUT1 Foundation, which was set up in America. So we very much work with the team in America, but we're a UK branch for them here in the UK. So we're trying to spread the word about GLUT1 as well, because we know that there are probably a lot of adults out there that have got this terrible seizure movement disorder, are on a load of anti-epileptic medication, but may never have been tested for GLUT1 deficiency.
Wow.
Where the diet could have helped them. We're not saying it can stop everything, but it certainly could have improved their quality of life. So we're very passionate about raising awareness of GLUT1, which is why we work very closely with Professor Jörg Klepper, who we fly in from Germany every 6 months in order to see GLUT1 patients in our charity clinics. And then he also works with Dr. Archana de Circa, who's based at Sheffield Hospital. So they're just writing a professional's guide for us at the moment, so there's a lot of information going on there. So there's the metabolic side of it, which is GLUT1. And then more recently, there is brain cancer. Where ketogenic diet has been looked at for various types of cancer over the years. And I stress to add here that this is extremely early days. There's no conclusive proof. I don't want people maybe seeing this and running out and putting themselves on a ketogenic diet. I would never advocate anybody using ketogenic diet for medical purposes without being supervised. But Tom Seyfried wrote a book treating cancer as a metabolic disorder, and there are lots of other books and literature out there on the internet, as there would be, regarding this kind of thing. So what we've done is, as a clinic, we can't open our doors to everybody with cancer to treat on the ketogenic diet, because the truth is we don't know if the ketogenic diet is going to work for with cancer. The theory behind it, especially with brain tumour, is that the brain tumours are really high dependent on glucose. They feed off glucose. So what happens if we take the glucose away? This is what we're looking at. Also, those people with brain tumours, usually, in a lot of cases, there is seizures that go alongside it. So we're kind of on the ground that we're using the ketogenic diet for the seizures first and foremost, because we know, and it's proven, that the ketogenic diet can stop seizures. So first off, we're looking at if we can stop the patient's seizures and give them an improved quality of life as far as that's concerned. But on as a side issue, we're also looking to see what's happening to that tumour. There's lots of work going on in America. Adrian Scheck is doing some phenomenal work. Don D'Agostino is also doing some work on this. So those kind of teams we're in contact with. We're flying them all in October for the big ketogenic diet conference that's going on. So, like I say, again, as Matthew's friends do, we always work with our medical board and we always work with the medical professionals. But that's one area. Those are the three areas that Matthew's friends clinics are working in now. Those are what we're doing within our own clinic. And then, obviously, there is also some limited research going on for those with Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, autism. Now, those are really early days, and there's research going on. So I can't say anything more about those at the moment, but we're keeping an eye on the research, and we will be, trying to work with others as this gets further on. If there's more kind of evidence, more hypotheses coming through, then we're going to need to look at it. I think people need to look at diet a lot more than just throw a pill at it, throw a pill at it, throw a pill at it. I'm not knocking conventional medication at all. It all has its place. But, my argument, and that of my dietitian, I can always remember her nearly jumping up and down in frustration when we're trying to get a patient on the diet. And she's like, why are doctors so happy to change the biochemistry of the body using a pill, but they seem to draw a blank to it when it comes to doing exactly the same thing but using food?
Exactly that.
Yeah. It kind of defies it, and we understand there's got to be medical research in this thing, where that's why we do a lot of work on the research side of things. But, we've got to look at the patient quality of life. If you have failed 2 anti-epileptic medications, the chance of a third one working is reduced to about 12%.
Wow.
And that's quoting Professor Cross. That's not me making this up. This is quoting the medical professionals. I'm in a very privileged position where I get to go to all the conferences. I work with a lot of the experts in the field. So you get privy to this kind of information, and you're working in this area. So it is very frustrating when we've got adults in front of us that are desperate to try the ketogenic diet, but they can't get funding because there's no conclusive evidence that it works. But then again, they've been on 15 medications and that's not worked, and we need a 3-month trial of the diet. And we know in our own adult clinics, and Mike is testament to this already, that it can work very, very well with adults. Yeah,
absolutely. And there's a fair amount of kind of research, especially in type 2 diabetes, about low carb ketogenic diets being useful for that. There was a recent paper that was the lead author was Professor Richard Feynman, who said, low carbohydrate diets, some of them being ketogenic diets, should be the first step for diabetes management, type 1 and type 2, which is really interesting. And have you guys looked into that at all?
We haven't touched the diabetic side of things, I have to admit.
Yeah.
It's something that we need to look at, because I think there are a lot of people with diabetes that if they followed a lower carb kind of diet, they probably wouldn't need as much medication, or if any medication at all. Have we treated people with diabetes in the clinic? We have, if they've got epilepsy as well, but we haven't taken on specific people with diabetes and just diabetes. We have tended to concentrate on the epilepsy, GLUT1 and cancer patients, because we're in partnership with those experts. We work with the Astro Brain Tumour Fund for the cancer. We work with the GLUT1 Foundation when it comes to the metabolic, and then all the epilepsy, foundations and professionals there. So no, I have to say, as far as the Matthews Friends is concerned, we haven't treated diabetic patients.
Not just yet. But possibly in the future, we'll see.
I mean, in the future, it could be all kinds of different patients. At the moment, we're having to keep limited that because I need a lot more staff. I need a lot more dietitians and things like that. So at the moment, we're busy fundraising, and then I can employ some more professionals to work in this, and then we've got to fundraise and do that. So it's step by step that we're doing, but.
We're getting there. You're getting there for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's quite incredible. On the website, you've got an absolute ton of resources for people to look at, and to sort of get an idea of where to start with a ketogenic diet. But where do people kind of start with that process?
Going on the website is a good idea, although I have to say I hate that website right now. We're in the middle of having another one done, but there's not enough hours in the day. So there's a new Matthews Friends site coming to celebrate our 10 years with a heap more information than what we've got on there now. I think for people to start with, if they're looking at going for a ketogenic diet, find out as much information as you can. Make sure it's from a reliable source as well. We do have to be careful with what's on the internet sometimes.
Yeah, very much so.
Which is why we've always worked with medical professionals, because with us that there'll be some of it that's patient experience. My story with Matthew is my experience. It's not medical evidence. It's my experience. So there are a lot of patients' experiences now, but we're also very clear of what has been approved by our medical board. So there are certain things where it's medically where we turn around and we say, please don't go on a ketogenic diet without medical supervision. And the reason we say this is because certain blood tests need to be doing, some people don't suit high ketones. Matthew on his ketogenic diet never suited being in high ketosis, whereas he was far better and he suited being moderate ketosis. But some people need really high ketones, some can't tolerate it, need really low ones. So if you've got an experienced team, they can find that right level for you. If you're taking medications, be it GLUT1, be it cancer, be it tumor, sometimes ketogenic diet can interfere with those, or there might be an upset, you might not get as high ketones because of the medication. So you need an experienced team to do that, to make sure that if the diet's going to work for you, that it's done properly and safely, and you're still getting all the calories, you're not losing too much weight, you're not putting too much weight on, your blood level's fine. Because and this is where the diet did get a bad name in the early days, even before the trial was done, is because people would have a go at it without knowing that maybe there may be other factors in it. So we're trying to eliminate this. Don't have a go at it yourself. Get supervised. But that also leads us on to another problem, in the fact that there's not enough resources in the country. There's not enough children's for epilepsy dietitians to do it. There's certainly not enough adult clinics. I mean, that's just an abysmal situation. The cancer is very early days. Now, from my point of view, how can you turn around to somebody with cancer and say, no, don't do the diet, don't do the diet? I can, and I will say, don't do it without supervision. You can't stop that person, and I fully understand that they may be so desperate that they would try it.
Yeah.
I will still reiterate, please don't do it without supervision. Because, if you're doing this and you want it to work, you need people around you that can support you and help you and make sure it's done properly.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's really important, especially if you do have like a serious medical condition, that you are medically
Yes.
supervised on this, because if
Yeah.
you're taking any drugs at all, then that's going to knock everything out of kilter. And if you've got like a medical condition already, that's
Yeah.
you got unbalanced biochemistry anyway.
Yes.
But for people to kind of get in contact with you and start this process of maybe getting some help from Matthew's friends, what's the best way to get in contact with you guys?
The best way is via the website, and you know, send us an email, inquiries@matthewsfriends.org, or you can email me, emma@matthewsfriends.org, and we'll start pointing you in that direction. We've got some booklets and some information that we can send out to people about what we do and how to start. We've also got an Eating for Health and Wellbeing sheet, which our dietitian has written, which is starting, it's tiptoeing, it's not a ketogenic diet, but it's tiptoeing down that line of looking at the healthier options. It's looking at, you know, maybe lowering that glycemic index that you're having, getting rid of the rubbish. And that's really been a good introduction for some of our adults that have started down that road, that they've started looking at what they're eating, the timings of what they're eating, and generally how to make themselves feel better, even if they're just on medication. So we sort of start down that road, and then we start with a preparation for the diet, on maybe going it in stages, because some people, it's about building up their confidence as well. Because, you know, back in the day when Matthew started, one day he was on a normal diet, the next day he was like on a 4-to-1 ketogenic diet, and it was straight in, and you're like, oh, crikey, and it was kind of panic. Now, I'm pleased to say, we've come a long way in the 10 years. So you start introducing people in, we take them in stages, we build up their confidence. I mean, we run a lot of introductory days where you can do cooking and come and find out about all the different types of diet, look at the ones that maybe you think are right for you. I mean, the more restrictive ones, like the classical or MCT diet, we use those more for kiddies, whereas you've got a modified ketogenic diet or a low glycemic index treatment, we would use more for the adults, which are more liberal, which are easier to manage. So, you know, the days are coming where we actually, in some cases, we're using a hybrid of all the 4 different types of ketogenic diets we currently use, and we're using a mix of them in order to tailor it to that individual patient that comes in order to give them the best quality of life and the ease of how to manage the diets for themselves. I mean, every one of them needs changes made, but if you actually look at it, you're actually stripping back to the basics. You're looking at meats, fish, dairy, you're looking at low-carb veggies and fruits, you're looking at all the unprocessed foods. So a lot of families that we take down the ketogenic diet, instead of going, oh, it's all high fat and it's unhealthy, they're actually eating better than they were before because they're not eating any more rubbish. And this is a big teaching thing that we do with families, that actually don't think of it as a negative, think of it as a positive. You're actually going back to where everybody's saying that we should be, and that's cooking from scratch and eating healthily.
That's it. It's often the case that people that tend to go on low carb diets tend to start to eat more real foods.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is quite a funny thing. So, you know, over the past 40 years, we've tended to start to eat a slightly higher carb diet, and junk food has kind of gone through the roof. But anyway, thank you so much for your time today, Emma. It's been an absolute pleasure finding out more about you and what you're doing with Matthew's Friends. Highly recommend everybody going over to matthewsfriends.org. And if you have any friends that have got any of the metabolic conditions that we've talked about today, make sure that you refer them to Matthew's Friends.
And also say, Sam, that we've got the big global conference coming in October.
Brilliant.
Which is where we've got the world's experts on ketogenic diets coming to Liverpool. So they're there for a professional conference we're holding for about 4 days, and then on the 11th of October we've got the family day where patients can come, families can come along. It's £15 each to come along for the day. There are specialist Group 1 sessions. There are cancer sessions with Tom Seafried is going to be presenting, and Adrian Sheck. And then we've got the Epilepsy conference as well. So if you are interested it will be at least another 4 years before this conference comes back to the UK, because we partner it with the Charlie Foundation.
Brilliant.
So it's held every 2 years. So we've got it in the UK, then in 2 years' time the Charlie Foundation, and then Matty's friends will have it again. So it's going to be at least 4 years. So if you are interested in wanting to know more about the ketogenic diet for whatever condition, then this would be the meeting to go to, I would recommend.
Absolutely, absolutely. And can they just find out more information about that on the website, or?
Yeah, if they're interested, there's booking forms on Matty's friends' website, or they can also email us directly.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Okay.
And there's only one more thing to do, and that's to hear a smash it out from Emma Williams, MBE. So on 3, I want you to shout smash it out to the camera. Right. So 1, 2, 3.
Smash it out!
Hey, that's what I'm talking about. That's brilliant, Emma.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time today. And again, everybody check out matthewsfriends.org. And yeah, until October, hopefully I'll see you in October, Emma.
That'd be brilliant, Sam. That'd be brilliant. Why don't you come up and do some interviews with the people that are around? Yeah,
that'd be brilliant. I definitely want to talk to Thomas Siegfried. And is Dom going to be there, sorry?
Oh, yeah, Tom's there.
Brilliant, brilliant. So I'll definitely come up for that and say hello. It'd be great to meet him face to face.
Okay, it'll be good to see you. Thanks ever so much. Enjoyed it.
No problem, no problem. All right, Emma, I'll speak to you soon.
Take care.